This country was once unbelievably rich: resources, industry, power. But no invasion, no war, no single disaster destroyed it. Instead, one hidden economic trap slowly drained everything, year after year. Most people still don't see it. And the scariest part? The same trap is being repeated today. The photograph is sepia-toned, but the ambition in it is color-saturated. It is the dawn of the 20th century. Two cities, separated by a hemisphere, stare confidently into the future. On the left, New York. Its skyline is a forest of cranes and emerging steel, a raw promise etched against the sky. On the right, Buenos Aires. Its grand European-style avenues, paved with imported marble, gleam under the southern sun. Champagne flows in its opulent cafes. The opera house rivals Milan's. At this precise historical moment, these are not rivals. They are twin sisters, born with the same silver spoon. Economists of the age spoke of them in the same breath, the coming titans of the new century. Money wasn't just entering Argentina, it was drowning it. A golden river of British pounds and French francs poured in, financing railroads that stitched the pampas together, grand ports and palatial estates. Immigrants from Italy and Spain arrived not with dreams, but with the tangible expectation of wealth. The land itself seemed blessed by a benevolent god, fertile soil where cattle and wheat grew with minimal effort, generating export wealth that made the nation's elite among the richest on earth. It was, without exaggeration, the South American Gilded Age. The future wasn't a question, it was a guarantee printed on stock certificates. The world had placed its bet. Argentina was the sure thing. Meanwhile, the United States was messy. It was a cacophony of industrial noise, immigrant struggles, and cutthroat competition. Its wealth wasn't a serene gift of nature, it was something being wrestled from the ground, forged in factories, and argued over in courtrooms. There was no single, easy source of riches. It was a chaotic, often unfair scramble. So what force could possibly derail a destiny so assured? How do you bankrupt a nation that has everything? Resources, capital, ambition, and the unwavering confidence of the world? The answer is not found in a drought, a war, or a twist of bad luck. Stop blaming geography for economic fate. The collapse was not an accident. It was a choice. A silent, structural choice made in paneled boardrooms and legislative halls. It comes down to the fundamental architecture of a society, to the unwritten rules that govern who wins and who loses. Every nation operates from one of two blueprints. The first is designed for the many, where the rules, while imperfect, aim to create a platform upon which anyone with talent or grit can build. The second is designed for the few, a meticulously crafted machine with one purpose: to extract wealth from the many and funnel it, efficiently and perpetually, to a privileged inner circle. Argentina, in its moment of golden promise, chose the second blueprint. The elites gazed upon their overflowing bounty and asked not, "How can we build a greater kingdom for all?" but, "How can we build a higher fence around this kingdom for ourselves?" They had immense appetites, and so they began to build not a nation, but an extraction machine. But the true genius and tragedy of this machine was its disguise. It didn't look like a trap. It looked like prosperity. The golden river kept flowing, masking the rot beneath the marble. The party was so loud no one heard the locks clicking shut on the nation's future. But what happens next will change everything. Because the most dangerous economic collapse is not a sudden crash, but a slow, invisible poison. And the first symptom is never in the stock market. It's in the silencing of a single inventor's dream. This is where the paths of the twin sisters truly diverge, and the mechanism of national suicide begins its quiet, relentless work. Picture the Argentine economy not as a growing tree, but as a sophisticated pump. Its sole function, to suck the golden juice of the pampas, the beef, the wheat, the grain, from the earth and pipe it directly into the vaults of the landed oligarchy and their connected financiers. This is an extractive institution. The people, they were merely the soil from which the nutrients were drawn. If you were inside the pipeline network, you lived like a deity. If you were outside, you were a disposable component, cheap labor to be replaced. The system was rigged from its inception. Justice, when its gavel was made of the same rotten wood as the oligarchs' fences, became mere theater, a performance to protect the monopoly. Here lies the cruel irony. Argentina failed because it was too rich, too early. This is the resource curse in its most seductive form. When unimaginable wealth comes from simply owning a piece of land and selling what naturally grows on it, innovation becomes a nuisance. Why invest in engineers? Why fund public schools or universities? An educated populace asks uncomfortable questions. Innovators threaten comfortable monopolies. The banks existed not to fund dreams, but to fortify friendships. A brilliant young mind with a prototype was not seen as an asset, but as a threat. The doors were not just closed, they were barricaded. Now, shift the scene north. In the smoke-choked cities of America, a different engine was spluttering to life. It was not a neat, efficient pump. It was a massive, chaotic flywheel. Its power came not from a single source, but from millions of small sparks. The line at the U.S. Patent Office stretched out the door, a messy, democratic queue of hope. The system, for all its flaws, was open. It didn't ask for your pedigree, it asked for your idea. A former telegraph clerk named Thomas Edison could tinker in a lab and redefine light itself. A failed farmer named Henry Ford could envision an assembly line and put a continent on wheels. This was creative destruction, brutal, disruptive, and profoundly progressive. The automobile didn't just replace the horse, it obliterated an entire ecosystem of related industries. Buggy whips, stables, feed suppliers, to birth new ones: petrol, steel, rubber, roads. America understood that this messy engine needed fuel, not just coal, but brain power. It invested sunlight into classrooms, believing that an educated worker was more valuable than an uneducated one. The flywheel turned. Invention created industry, industry created jobs, jobs created spending, spending fueled more invention. The wealth was broad-based, uneven, but undeniably spreading. Back in Buenos Aires, the libraries remained locked. Knowledge was a threat. The elites knew a fundamental truth. It is infinitely harder to control a population that understands how the money works, that can see the pipes and trace where the golden juice flows. They chose control over growth, stability over dynamism, monopoly over meritocracy. They were dining on the seed corn of the nation's future, mistaking it for an endless feast. And this is where the video takes a shocking turn, because this isn't just a history lesson buried in old photographs. The ghost of that Argentine extraction machine isn't confined to the past. It is walking the corridors of power today, in nations across the globe. The symptoms are re-emerging, and if you look closely, you might see its shadow stretching across the very country that once chose the flywheel. Fast forward. The calendar pages have turned. One sister leads the world, the other is a case study in perpetual crisis. But history's most chilling warning is not that nations fail, it's that the same patterns of failure are cyclical. Look around. The storm clouds are gathering on a familiar horizon. The American flywheel is showing alarming signs of seizing up. The debt machinery is printing not just money, but a dangerous illusion that we can consume wealth we haven't yet created. Go to the grocery store. Those spinning prices are not an accident. They are the ghost of Buenos Aires haunting the aisles. Inflation is the silent thief, and it doesn't steal from the vaults of the rich. It steals the stored labor, the hope, from the piggy banks of the middle class, leaving nothing but dust. Observe the new architecture of power. The oil tycoons and railroad barons of old have seamlessly passed the baton to the tech titans and data monopolists of today. The product changed from crude oil to crude attention, but the logic remains: consolidate, control, extract. Try launching a true competitor now. The modern giant doesn't compete. It acquires or crushes. The ladder that Edison and Ford climbed is being pulled up into a walled garden. Our marketplace presents an illusion of choice, 50 brands of soda all connected to the same subterranean tank. Our political discourse is drowning in a polite, legalized form of corruption called lobbying, the art of purchasing the rulebook itself. When the referees are on the payroll, the game is a foregone conclusion. The social contract, the bridge between the striving many and the successful few, isn't just strained, its pylons are being deliberately eroded. When that gap becomes a chasm, the entire societal structure trembles. So, we stand at the mirror, holding the old photograph. Is the US glitching into Argentina's pattern? The symptoms are terrifyingly familiar. Rampant debt, stifling monopolies, a political system that too often serves the insiders, a populace simmering with the gut feeling that the game is rigged. Even the foundational rules feel faded, overwritten by fine print and loopholes. But this is not our inevitable fate. I am not here just to scare you. I am here to deliver a crucial truth. Argentina's story is not a prophecy, it is a diagnosis. And a diagnosis, however grave, is the first step toward a cure. We are at the same tipping point, but we have the one thing they lacked in 1900. The clear, documented lesson of what happens next. We have a choice. The next generation faces a fork in the road. One path leads to a cyberpunk ruin of extreme inequality and technological stagnation. The other leads to a new golden age of broad-based innovation. We still hold the keys. They are called education. The relentless pursuit of understanding how the system truly works. And voice, the courageous insistence on rewriting the rules. They are dusty from disuse, but they still turn the locks. We must break down the walls of modern monopoly. We must let the sunlight of competition and merit back into the system. An economy is not a machine to be milked. It is an ecosystem. And an ecosystem only survives when it works for every species within it. Do not bet against human ingenuity. Our greatest resource was never oil or beef or silicon. It is the sparked neuron, the unproven idea, the determination to build. If we understand the trap, we can step over it. Mark Twain reminded us that history may not repeat, but it often rhymes. The stanza of the early 21st century is being written now. Will it be a dirge of decline or a verse of renewal? The signals are flashing red, but awareness is the antidote to inevitability. Read the books, question the narratives, follow the pipes. It's not too complicated. It's your money, your future, your nation's soul on the line. The hourglass is running, but the next grain of sand hasn't fallen.